Good evening, dear listeners. Welcome to Mystery Manor Tales, your cozy corner for timeless whodunits and relaxing narratives. I'm your host, Reginald Hawthorne, and tonight I have a special treat for you. An original Hercule Poirot mystery in the grand style of Dame Agatha Christie. Titled Blood on the Crimson Canal, this tale transports us to the misty waterways of 1920s Venice, where secrets lurk beneath the surface and no one is quite what they seem. Chapter 1. Arrival in Venice. If you're curling up with a blanket, sipping tea, or drifting off to sleep, you're in for a treat. This is a long, leisurely journey, perfect for unwinding, so settle in and let the story unfold. Before we begin, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening from tonight? Perhaps a cozy corner in London or maybe a starlit patio in Sydney. Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy this mystery, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more. Now let's step into the world of Hercule Poirot. Chapter 1. Arrival in Venice. In the autumn of 1925, Venice lay draped in a golden haze, its canals shimmering like veins of liquid amber under the fading Mediterranean sun. The Grand Canal, that ancient thoroughfare of La Serenissima, wove through the city's heart, its waters catching the light in hues of crimson and gold, a poetic beauty that locals called the Crimson Canal at dusk. Gondolas glided past crumbling palazzos, their facades weathered by centuries of tides, while vaporettos chugged alongside, ferrying tourists beneath arched bridges adorned with moss and history. It was a city of contradictions, opulent yet decaying, vibrant yet melancholic, a place where every ripple seemed to whisper secrets. Into this enchanting labyrinth arrived Hercule Poirot, the celebrated Belgian detective, his egg-shaped head held high, his meticulously waxed mustache gleaming like a badge of precision. His green eyes, sharp as cut emeralds, surveyed the scene with a blend of curiosity and mild disapproval. Poirot had come to Venice reluctantly, persuaded by his old friend Captain Arthur Hastings, who had promised a restorative holiday. Mon ami, Hastings had written in a letter postmarked from London, "The change of air will invigorate those little gray cells of yours. Venice is magic, you'll see." Poirot, however, had grumbled about the dampness, the irregularity of Italian cuisine, and the unsettling prospect of traveling by boat. Yet the allure of the city's canals, glowing crimson at sunset, had tugged at his sense of romance. And so, here he was. He stepped off the Orient Express at Santa Lucia Station, his polished shoes clicking on the platform, a valise in one gloved hand and a silver-tipped cane in the other. The air was crisp, tinged with salt and the faint musk of ancient stone. Waiting for him was Hastings, tall and affable, his boyish grin as infectious as ever. His tweed suit was slightly rumpled, a contrast to Poirot's immaculate pinstripes. "Poirot, old chap," Hastings called, striding forward. "Jolly good to see you. I knew you couldn't resist Venice. I've arranged something special, a private cruise on a luxurious barge, the Serenissima Queen. It's owned by Sir Reginald Harrington, a steel magnate from London. He's hosting a small party and we're invited. Should be splendid." Poirot raised an eyebrow, his mustache twitching slightly. "A barge, Hastings? On these canals? It sounds confining and damp. Poirot prefers the solidity of terra firma." "Oh, nonsense," Hastings laughed, clapping Poirot on the shoulder. "It's a floating palace, cabins, a dining salon, even a library. We'll glide through the canals by night, away from the tourist throngs. Sir Reginald insists on privacy, something about sensitive business dealings. You'll love it." As they boarded a water taxi to the mooring point near the Rialto Bridge, Poirot observed the city with his keen eye. The Grand Canal unfolded before them, its waters reflecting the ornate facades of palazzos, their balconies draped in ivy. Gondoliers called to one another in lilting Italian, their voices echoing off stone walls. The taxi's engine hummed, cutting through the water, which shimmered red in the late afternoon light. Poirot noted the locals' term for this phenomenon, the Crimson Canal, and felt a prickle of unease as if the name foreshadowed something darker. The Serenissima Queen awaited at a secluded dock, its mahogany hull gleaming, brass fittings polished to a mirror shine. Velvet curtains framed its windows, and a small deck at the stern offered views of the canal. The barge was a marvel of engineering and elegance, 30 meters long with a crew of 4. A captain, a chef, and 2 stewards, all discreetly Italian and tight-lipped about their employer. Sir Reginald Harrington greeted them as they stepped aboard, a burly man in his 50s with a ruddy face and a voice that boomed like a foghorn. His diamond pinky ring and tailored dinner jacket screamed new money, earned through steel mills and wartime contracts. "Mr. Poirot, Captain Hastings," he bellowed, shaking their hands with vigor. "Welcome to my little escape. I'm Sir Reginald, knighted for services to industry, don't you know? This is my wife, Lady Amelia." A woman in her 40s approached, her elegance tempered by a shadowed weariness. Her pearl necklace glowed against her silk gown, but her blue eyes held a flicker of discontent. "A pleasure," she murmured, offering a gloved hand that felt limp in Poirot's grasp. "I hope you enjoy our unconventional holiday." Next came Victor Lang, Sir Reginald's business partner, a lean man with sharp features and a pencil mustache that seemed to quiver with suppressed tension. "We handle imports from the East," he said curtly, his eyes darting to Sir Reginald. "Silks, spices, steel components. Profitable, but cutthroat." Poirot noted the edge in his voice, as if every word were calculated. Miss Elena Harrington, Sir Reginald's niece, bounded forward with the energy of youth. At 25, her bobbed hair and flapper-style dress marked her as a modern woman. Her laugh was bright, but her eyes held a cunning glint. "Uncle Reggie spoils me rotten," she said, winking at Poirot. "I'm here for the adventure, and maybe a little mischief." Countess Olga Petrova, a Russian émigré with high cheekbones and a fur stole, inclined her head regally. Her dark eyes sparkled with secrets. "Sir Reginald and I met in Paris years ago," she purred, her accent thick. "Old friends, you might say." Poirot caught the way Sir Reginald's gaze lingered on her, and Lady Amelia's subtle frown in response. Finally, Dr. Émile Moreau, a French physician with wire-rimmed glasses and a nervous tic in his left cheek, introduced himself. "I'm the family doctor," he said, his voice soft but strained. "Here to monitor Sir Reginald's health. Heart troubles, you understand." He clutched a leather medical bag, his fingers twitching. As the barge cast off, its engines purring softly, Poirot settled into his cabin, a compact but luxurious space with a velvet-upholstered bed and a porthole overlooking the canal. The group gathered in the dining salon for aperitifs, served by a steward in crisp white. Crystal glasses clinked and conversation flowed like the Chianti. Talk of business rivalries, lost fortunes from the Great War, and whispered hints of scandal. Sir Reginald boasted of a new merger with Lang's firm, one that would dominate European steel markets. Lang nodded tightly, his jaw clenched. Lady Amelia stared into her glass, her silence louder than words. Elena flirted shamelessly with Hastings, who blushed. The Countess laughed throatily, her eyes never leaving Sir Reginald. Dr. Moreau checked his watch repeatedly, muttering about medication schedules. Poirot sipped his vermouth, his gray cells humming. The barge glided into a narrower canal, the water now a deep crimson in the twilight. He stepped onto the deck, lighting a cigarette, and listened to the night. Raised voices drifted from Sir Reginald's cabin. An argument with Lang about forged contracts? Or was it Lady Amelia confronting her husband about the Countess's lingering glances? The air felt thick with tension, like a storm gathering over the lagoon. Chapter 2. The Floating Palace. Picture yourself on a luxurious barge, the Serenissima Queen, drifting through Venice's crimson-tinted canals. The air is cool, the night is young, and danger is closer than anyone suspects. Before we dive in, I'd love to know, what's the mood where you're listening tonight? Are you cozied up with a candle flickering, or perhaps lounging by a window with the stars above? Drop it in the comments below, and if you're enjoying this tale, give us a like and subscribe for more mysteries. Now, let's continue with Chapter 2. The Floating Palace. The Serenissima Queen cut through the Grand Canal with the grace of a swan, its polished mahogany hull reflecting the golden lanterns strung along its deck. The barge, a marvel of modern craftsmanship, was a floating testament to Sir Reginald Harrington's wealth. A 30-meter vessel with plush interiors that rivaled the finest London hotels. Its dining salon gleamed with crystal chandeliers, its cabins boasted velvet drapes, and a small library housed leather-bound tomes that whispered of old money, even if Sir Reginald's fortune was decidedly new. As the barge slipped into a narrower canal, away from the bustling vaporettos, the water took on a deeper hue, its surface glowing crimson in the twilight, a sight both beautiful and faintly ominous. Hercule Poirot stood at the stern, his gloved hands resting on the brass railing, his sharp green eyes scanning the passing palazzos. Their facades, weathered by centuries of tides, seemed to watch the barge in return, their shuttered windows hiding secrets as old as Venice itself. Poirot's companion, Captain Arthur Hastings, joined him, his face flushed with excitement. "Isn't this splendid, Poirot? A private cruise, fine company, and the best food this side of the Alps. What more could a man want?" Poirot's mustache twitched. "Order, mon ami, and perhaps a floor that does not sway beneath one's feet. This barge, it is magnificent, yes, but Poirot senses, how do you say, a disquiet in the air." Hastings chuckled. "You're always sniffing out trouble. Relax, old boy, it's a holiday." But Poirot's little gray cells were not so easily quieted. He had noted the undercurrents at play during the aperitifs, and now, as the group gathered for dinner in the salon, those currents swirled more strongly. The table was a vision. Silver cutlery glinted under the chandelier, and the aroma of risotto al nero di sepia, blackened with squid ink, mingled with the tang of fine Chianti. The steward, a wiry Venetian named Marco, moved silently, pouring wine with practiced precision. Poirot, ever the gourmet, approved of the meal but paid closer attention to the diners. Sir Reginald Harrington presided at the head of the table, his ruddy face glowing with pride. "To Venice," he toasted, raising his glass, "and to new ventures." His diamond pinky ring caught the light, a gaudy emblem of his steel empire. But his booming voice couldn't mask the tension in his eyes as he glanced at his business partner, Victor Lang. Lang, sharp-featured and tightly wound, raised his glass with a thin smile. "Two profits," he said, his tone clipped. Earlier, Poirot had overheard Lang muttering to Hastings about a merger, a deal to corner the European steel market. "Reginald takes risks I wouldn't," Lang had confided. "He's reckless, and it could ruin us both." Now, as Lang cut into his ossobuco, his knife moved with a precision that bordered on menace. Lady Amelia Harrington sat to her husband's right, her pearl necklace a stark contrast to the shadows beneath her eyes. She sipped her wine slowly, her gaze drifting to the canal beyond the window, where the water gleamed like spilled blood. When Sir Reginald boasted of his latest deal, she murmured, "You always did love a gamble, darling." The words were soft, but Poirot caught the bite beneath them, a hint of resentment, perhaps over more than just business. Miss Eleanor Harrington, the niece, sparkled like the chandelier above. Her bobbed hair swung as she laughed, her flapper dress shimmering with beads. "Uncle Reggie, tell them about the time you outbid that German tycoon," she said, her voice bright but her eyes calculating. To Poirot, she whispered, "Auntie's been cross lately. Uncle's distractions, you know." Her glance flicked toward Countess Olga Petrova, and Poirot noted the implication. An affair, perhaps? The Countess, resplendent in a fur stole and emerald earrings, leaned forward, her Russian accent thick as she addressed Sir Reginald. "You were always bold, Reggie, even in Paris all those years ago. Remember our little adventures?" Her laugh was throaty, her eyes locked on his. Lady Amelia's hand tightened on her glass and Poirot's gray cells stirred. "Old friends," the Countess had said. But what debts or promises bound them? Dr. Emile Moreau, the family physician, sat at the table's far end, his wire-rimmed glasses reflecting the candlelight. His nervous tic, a twitch in his left cheek, grew more pronounced as the meal progressed. "Sir Reginald, your medication," he said, producing a small vial from his pocket. "For your heart. You mustn't forget." Sir Reginald waved him off with a grunt. "Later, Emile. I'm fit as a fiddle tonight." Moreau's lips pressed into a thin line, and Poirot wondered, was the doctor merely dutiful, or was there more to his insistence? As the meal concluded with tiramisu and espresso, the conversation grew looser, lubricated by wine. Sir Reginald spoke of his steel empire, hinting at a rival who'd threatened to expose forged contracts. Lang's jaw tightened at this, his fingers drumming the table. Elena teased Hastings about his bachelor status, her flirtations drawing a blush. The Countess recounted a tale of lost Romanov jewels, her voice heavy with nostalgia. Or was it calculation? Lady Amelia excused herself early, claiming a headache, but Poirot saw her linger by the salon's door, listening. The barge anchored in a quiet side canal near the Arsenal, where the city's ancient shipyards loomed like ghosts in the fog. The water was still, its crimson hue now a deep, inky red under the moon. The group retired to their cabins, but Poirot lingered on deck, lighting a cigarette. The air was cool, carrying the scent of salt and damp stone. He heard footsteps, soft, deliberate. Then voices from Sir Reginald's cabin, muffled but sharp. An argument? Lang's voice, low and urgent. "You've gone too far, Reginald. If this comes out, we're finished." Or was it Lady Amelia, her tone icy? "You think I don't know about her?" The words faded and Poirot exhaled a plume of smoke, his mind turning. He paced the deck, noting the barge's layout. The master cabin at the bow with a single door and a bolted porthole, the narrow gangway leading to the salon, the crew's quarters below. The barge felt like a locked room isolated on the water, its secrets contained within its polished walls. Poirot's gray cells hummed, a premonition of tragedy perhaps, or merely the unease of a man who thrived on order in a city of shifting tides. Chapter 3. Shadows on the Water. The Serenissima Queen is anchored in a quiet canal, its passengers wrapped in secrets as thick as the mist outside. Last we left them, voices were raised and Poirot's little gray cells were stirring. What's brewing aboard this floating palace? Let's find out. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, what's the vibe where you're listening tonight? Are you wrapped in a blanket by a roaring fire or gazing at the moon from a balcony? And if this tale is gripping you, hit that like button and subscribe for more mysteries. Now let's glide into Chapter 3, Shadows on the Water. Morning broke over Venice like a hesitant guest. The lagoon cloaked in a dense fog that softened the edges of the city's ancient palazzos. The Grand Canal, so vibrant with crimson hues at sunset, now lay muted, its waters a dull gray under a heavy sky. The Serenissima Queen, anchored in a secluded side canal near the Arsenal, seemed suspended in a dream world. its mahogany hull barely visible through the mist. The air was damp, carrying the scent of salt and ancient stone, and a faint chill that clung to the skin like a whispered warning. Hercule Poirot awoke in his cabin, the gentle sway of the barge a reminder of his unconventional surroundings. He adjusted his silk pajamas, waxed his mustache with precision, and stepped onto the deck, where the fog curled like smoke around the brass railings. His green eyes, sharp as ever, scanned the scene. The crew, Captain Lorenzo, the chef, and 2 stewards, moved quietly, preparing breakfast in the galley below. Their silence was professional, but Poirot noted their furtive glances, as if they too sensed the unease that had settled over the barge. Captain Arthur Hastings joined him, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Bit gloomy this morning, eh, Poirot? This fog's thick enough to slice with a knife, still nothing like a hearty breakfast to lift the spirits." His cheerfulness was forced, and Poirot's mustache twitched in response. "Mon ami," Poirot said, "the fog, it is not merely in the air. There is a fog of secrets aboard this barge, and Poirot, he will pierce it." They entered the dining salon, where the chandelier's light struggled against the gloom filtering through the velvet-curtained windows. The table was set for breakfast. Warm brioche, fresh figs, and espresso served in delicate porcelain cups. The passengers trickled in, their faces betraying the restless night behind them. Poirot observed each, his gray cells cataloging every gesture, every glance. Sir Reginald Harrington, the steel magnate, was as boisterous as ever, though his ruddy face seemed strained. "Fog be damned," he declared, tearing into a brioche. "We'll cruise to Murano today. Glass factories, you know. Good for business." His diamond pinky ring glinted, but Poirot noted a tremor in his hand as he reached for his coffee. Was it his heart condition, or something more? Lady Amelia Harrington sat opposite, her elegance untouched by the early hour. Her silk scarf, pinned with a sapphire brooch, contrasted with the pallor of her cheeks. She spoke little, her eyes darting to her husband, then to the window where the fog pressed against the glass like a living thing. "This barge feels like a prison today," she murmured, almost to herself. Poirot caught the words, wondering if they hinted at her marriage or something darker. Victor Lang, the business partner, sipped his espresso with calculated precision, his sharp features taut. Last night's argument with Sir Reginald, overheard by Poirot, lingered in the air. "The merger's on track," Lang said, responding to Sir Reginald's mention of Murano. "But we must be cautious. Rivals are circling." His eyes flicked to Poirot as if assessing whether the detective had heard too much. Poirot smiled blandly, filing away the tension. Miss Elena Harrington, the vivacious niece, breezed in, her bobbed hair slightly mussed but her smile undimmed. "This fog's positively gothic," she exclaimed, helping herself to figs. "It's like we're in a Poe story, isn't it, Captain Hastings?" She winked at Hastings, who blushed, but Poirot noted her fingers fidgeting with a locket around her neck. A nervous habit, perhaps, or a clue to her true thoughts. Her dependence on her uncle's wealth was no secret, but was there more to her cheer? Countess Olga Petrova entered last, her fur stole replaced by a velvet shawl that draped her like royalty. Her dark eyes swept the room, lingering on Sir Reginald with a warmth that made Lady Amelia stiffen. "In Russia, fog was a friend," she said, her accent thick. "It hid secrets from prying eyes." The comment hung in the air, and Poirot wondered, what secrets did the Countess guard? A past debt, a lost love, or something more dangerous? Dr. Emile Moreau, the physician, was already seated, his wire-rimmed glasses fogged from the steam of his espresso. His nervous tic was more pronounced, his left cheek twitching as he glanced at Sir Reginald. "Your medication, sir," he said, producing the same vial from last night. "You must take it with breakfast." Sir Reginald waved him off again. "Stop fussing. Emile, I'm not dead yet." The doctor's lips tightened, and Poirot noted a flash of something, fear, resentment, in his eyes. As breakfast continued, the conversation turned to the day's plans, but Poirot's attention was elsewhere. He observed the dynamics. Lang's curt replies to Sir Reginald, hinting at their strained partnership. Lady Amelia's silence, broken only by sharp glances at the Countess. Elena's flirtations, which seemed to mask a calculating mind. The Countess's cryptic remarks about Paris and debts unpaid. And Moreau's insistence on the medication, almost desperate. Each passenger carried a motive, like a shadow trailing them through the fog. Poirot excused himself to explore the barge, his cane tapping softly on the polished deck. The Serenissima Queen was a marvel, but its confines were claustrophobic. The master cabin at the bow, with its single door and bolted porthole. The narrow gangway leading to the salon, the crew's quarters below, accessible only by a steep ladder. The barge was a floating locked room, isolated by water and fog. Poirot paused by the master cabin, noting its heavy oak door and brass lock. A faint scratch mark near the keyhole caught his eye, recent perhaps, or merely wear. He filed it away. Returning to the salon, he overheard a snatch of conversation between Elena and Hastings. "Uncle's been reckless," she whispered. "That merger with Lang, it's not what it seems. And Auntie knows about, well, you know." Her voice dropped, but Poirot's ears were sharp. An affair, then, or something more sinister? As the morning wore on, the fog thickened, shrouding the barge in a cocoon of silence. The crew prepared to cast off for Murano, but the atmosphere grew heavier. Poirot stood on deck, watching the crimson-tinted water ripple beneath the mist. A sudden sound, a sharp, muffled thud from the direction of Sir Reginald's cabin, made him pause. He glanced at Hastings, who had followed him. "Did you hear that, mon ami?" Poirot asked. Hastings frowned. "Probably just the crew moving supplies, or this blasted fog playing tricks." But Poirot's gray cells were not convinced. The barge, the fog, the secrets, it was all converging like the narrowing canals around them. Something was coming, something that would stain the crimson canal redder still. Chapter 4. The Crime Discovered. The fog still clings to the Serenissima Queen, and a strange thud echoed from Sir Reginald's cabin last we left our tale. What darkness awaits? Let's find out. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, what's the atmosphere where you're listening tonight? Are you curled up by a fireplace, or perhaps watching the rain from a window? And if this mystery has you hooked, smash that like button and subscribe for more. Now let's step into Chapter 4, The Crime Discovered. The morning fog hung heavy over the Serenissima Queen, shrouding the barge in a veil of gray that seemed to muffle time itself. The narrow canal near the Arsenale, where the barge lay anchored, was silent save for the gentle lapping of water against the hull, a sound that now carried an eerie weight after the mysterious thud Poirot had heard the night before. The air was damp, thick with the scent of salt and decay, as if Venice itself were holding its breath. Hercule Poirot stood in his cabin, adjusting his tie with the precision of a man who found order in chaos. His green eyes, sharp as ever, reflected the dim light filtering through the porthole. He had slept little, his mind turning over the tensions aboard. Sir Reginald's reckless business deals, Lady Amelia's quiet resentment, Victor Lang's suppressed anger, Elena Harrington's cunning cheer, Countess Olga's cryptic past, and Dr. Moreau's nervous insistence. The barge, with its locked cabins and isolated mooring, felt like a stage set for tragedy. Captain Arthur Hastings knocked on Poirot's door, his face pale. "Morning, Poirot. That fog's not lifting, is it? Gives me the creeps. Shall we head to breakfast?" "Oui, mon ami," Poirot replied, his mustache twitching. But Poirot suspects the menu today will include more than brioche. They stepped onto the deck, where the crew moved like shadows, their faces tight with unspoken worry. Captain Lorenzo, a grizzled Venetian with weathered hands, was checking the mooring ropes, his eyes darting toward the master cabin. Poirot noted this, his gray cells stirring. Had the crew heard something in the night? Before they reached the dining salon, a piercing scream shattered the silence, echoing across the canal. It came from the bow, where the master cabin lay. Hastings froze. "Good Lord, that's Lady Amelia!" Poirot's cane tapped rapidly as he hurried forward, his small frame moving with surprising speed. The master cabin's oak door was shut, its brass lock gleaming. Lady Amelia stood outside, her silk robe disheveled, her face ashen. "Reginald!" she gasped, clutching the doorframe. He's not answering. I knocked, but something's wrong." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Madame, step back. Hastings, assist me." Hastings, his military instincts kicking in, tried the handle. Locked. He pounded on the door, calling, "Sir Reginald, open up!" No response. The other passengers gathered, drawn by the scream. Victor Lang, his sharp features tense. Elena, her locket clutched tightly. Countess Olga, her eyes wide but calculating. Dr. Moreau, his medical bag in hand, his tic more pronounced than ever. "Break it down," Poirot ordered. Hastings and Captain Lorenzo rammed the door, the wood splintering after 3 blows. The lock gave way and they stumbled inside. The sight stopped them cold. Sir Reginald Harrington lay sprawled on the cabin's Persian carpet, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. A dagger, its hilt ornate with a ruby gem, protruded from his chest. Blood had pooled beneath him, stark against the cream rug, its color mirroring the crimson canal outside. The cabin's porthole was bolted shut, the only window secure. The key to the door lay on the floor beside the body, and there were no footprints in the blood, no signs of struggle, an impossible crime. How had the killer entered and escaped a locked room? "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, kneeling beside the body. "The crimson canal claims its due." His gloved fingers examined the dagger without touching it, noting its craftsmanship. A Venetian antique, perhaps. The wound was precise, suggesting a steady hand. He glanced at the lock. The scratch mark he'd seen yesterday was still there, but no other signs of tampering. Lady Amelia collapsed into Elena's arms, sobbing. "Who could do this?" she wailed. Elena's face was pale, but her eyes flicked to the dagger, a strange intensity in them. Lang stepped forward, his voice cold. "This is a disaster. Reginald was indispensable." Yet Poirot caught a flicker of relief in his expression. Countess Olga crossed herself, murmuring in Russian, her fur shawl slipping slightly. Dr. Moreau pushed through, his hands trembling as he checked for a pulse. "He's gone," he said, his voice cracking. "Dead for hours, I'd say." Hastings, shaken, whispered to Poirot, "How the devil did this happen? The door was locked, the porthole bolted. It's impossible." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Impossible, mon ami? Non. Improbable, perhaps, but Poirot, he will unravel it." The crew summoned the Venetian police, and within the hour, a water taxi delivered Inspector Giovanni Bellini, a wiry man with a waxed beard and skeptical eyes. He surveyed the scene, then turned to Poirot. "Signor Poirot, your reputation precedes you. This is unusual. A locked cabin, no entry, no exit. Will you assist?" Poirot inclined his head. "Naturellement. The little gray cells. They are already at work." Bellini secured the cabin, ordering the crew to keep the barge anchored. Poirot began his initial observations, questioning each passenger briefly. Lady Amelia, still trembling, admitted she'd slept in a separate cabin, as she often did when Sir Reginald worked late. "I heard nothing," she insisted, though her eyes avoided Poirot's. Motive. She stood to inherit his fortune, and her husband's rumored infidelity stung deeply. Victor Lang claimed he'd been in his cabin all night, reviewing merger documents. Reginald was reckless, he said. This merger. There were enemies, rivals. His alibi was unverified, and Poirot noted a smudge of ink on his cuff. Had he been writing or destroying evidence? Motive. A fraudulent deal could ruin him. Elena, tearful but composed, said she'd retired early after flirting with Hastings. Uncle Reggie was so generous, she said, clutching her locket. Who would do this? Yet her grief seemed performative. Motive. A fortune awaited her if Sir Reginald died, childless. Countess Olga spoke of her friendship with Sir Reginald, hinting at an unpaid loan from their Paris days. He was a good man but careless, she said, her accent heavy. Her alibi was vague. She'd been strolling the deck late. Motive? Debts or a deeper grudge? Dr. Moreau admitted checking on Sir Reginald at midnight, urging him to take his heart medication. He refused, Moreau said, his tic betraying nerves. I left him alive. Poirot noted a vial missing from Moreau's bag. Motive, a past medical error, perhaps blackmail. A red herring emerged, a bloody footprint near the door matching Hastings' shoe size. Ridiculous, Hastings sputtered. I was in my cabin. His alibi held. Poirot had seen him retire, but the footprint sowed doubt. As the police photographed the scene, Poirot found a torn scrap of paper under the bed, a letter perhaps with the words betrayal and Paris legible. Another clue or a distraction? The fog outside thickened, trapping the barge in its eerie embrace. Chapter 5. Investigation begins. The Serenissima Queen is anchored in a misty canal, and Sir Reginald Harrington lies dead, a dagger in his chest, in a cabin locked from the inside. The Crimson Canal has claimed its victim, and Poirot's little gray cells are humming. Who among the passengers is the killer? Let's find out. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, what's the setting where you're listening tonight? Are you tucked into bed with the lights low, or perhaps sipping tea by candlelight? And if this mystery has you gripped, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Now let's step into Chapter 5. Investigation begins. The fog clung to the Serenissima Queen like a shroud, wrapping the barge in a cocoon of gray that muffled sound and sight. The narrow canal near the Arsenale, where the vessel remained anchored, seemed to pulse with secrets, its waters a dull crimson under the overcast sky. Inside the dining salon, the air was thick with tension, the crystal chandelier casting fractured light over the gathered passengers. Sir Reginald Harrington's murder, a dagger to the heart in a locked cabin, had shattered the illusion of their luxurious retreat, and now all eyes turned to Hercule Poirot. Poirot stood at the head of the salon, his small frame commanding despite his diminutive stature. His green eyes gleamed, his waxed mustache impeccable even in crisis. Mesdames et messieurs, he began, his voice calm but firm, a crime most heinous has been committed. Sir Reginald is dead and the killer is among us. Poirot will find the truth, but I require your cooperation. Inspector Bellini has graciously allowed me to lead the inquiry, and we begin now. Inspector Giovanni Bellini, the Venetian policeman with a waxed beard, stood by the door, his skeptical gaze softened by respect for Poirot's reputation. The passengers, Lady Amelia, Victor Lang, Elena Harrington, Countess Olga Petrova, and Dr. Émile Moreau, sat in uneasy silence, their faces a gallery of grief, fear, and suspicion. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever loyal, hovered near Poirot, his notebook ready to jot down details. Poirot began with Lady Amelia, whose pale face and trembling hands betrayed her shock. She sat wrapped in a silk shawl, her sapphire brooch glinting. "Madam," Poirot said gently, "tell me of last night. When did you last see your husband alive?" Lady Amelia's eyes flickered to the window, where the fog pressed against the glass. I retired to my cabin around 10, she said, her voice fragile. Reginald was working late as usual. I heard him arguing with someone, Victor, I think, about the merger. I didn't see him after that. Her fingers twisted a handkerchief, and Poirot noted a faint bruise on her wrist, barely visible under her sleeve. A struggle? Or merely an accident? Motive. Her inheritance was substantial, and Sir Reginald's rumored affair with the Countess stung deeply. Next, Poirot turned to Victor Lang, whose sharp features were taut with barely concealed agitation. Monsieur Lang, you argued with Sir Reginald last night, non? About this merger? Lang's pencil mustache quivered as he nodded. Yes, we disagreed. He was forging documents to inflate the deal's value, reckless, dangerous. I was in my cabin afterward, alone, working. He produced a ledger, its pages filled with neat figures, but Poirot noticed a torn corner as if a page had been removed. Motive. A ruined partnership could bankrupt him. Elena Harrington, the niece, sat with her hands folded, her locket glinting in the chandelier's light. Uncle Reggie was alive when I said good night, she said, her voice steady but her eyes darting. I heard nothing after that, just the canal, you know, lapping away. She smiled faintly at Hastings, who blushed, but Poirot caught her fingers brushing the locket, a nervous tick, perhaps, or a clue. Inside, he glimpsed a tiny photograph of Sir Reginald. Motive. Her inheritance depended on his death without heirs. Countess Olga Petrova leaned back, her velvet shawl slipping to reveal a diamond bracelet. I was on deck late admiring the fog, she said, her Russian accent thick. Reginald and I, we had history, Paris, years ago, alone, unpaid, but I bore no grudge. Her eyes held Poirot's, daring him to probe further. Poirot noted a faint scent of her perfume, jasmine, sharp and distinctive, lingering in the salon. Had it been in the master cabin? Motive, a debt, or perhaps a deeper betrayal. Dr. Émile Moreau, the physician, clutched his medical bag, his tic more pronounced. I checked on Sir Reginald at midnight, he said, his voice strained. He refused his heart medication. Again. I left him alive, I swear. Poirot's eyes fell on the bag, noting a missing vial from its usual slot. And this vial, doctor? Poirot asked. Moreau flushed. I misplaced it. It's nothing. Motive? A past medical error rumored to have nearly killed Sir Reginald could mean blackmail. Poirot dismissed the passengers, turning to the crime scene with Inspector Bellini. The master cabin was as they'd left it, Sir Reginald's body on the carpet, the ruby-hilted dagger in his chest, blood pooling like spilled ink. The porthole remained bolted, the door's lock intact save for the scratch mark Poirot had noted. The key lay beside the body, and the torn letter scrap, betrayal in Paris, was now in Bellini's evidence bag. Poirot examined the carpet, finding a single jasmine petal near the door, its scent matching the Countess's perfume. A clue or a clever distraction? Outside, Hastings pointed to the bloody footprint near the door, matching his own shoe size. It's absurd, Poirot. I was asleep. Poirot nodded, his eyes on the footprint's edge. Too clean, as if deliberately placed. A red herring, perhaps, to divert suspicion. Poirot questioned the crew next. Captain Lorenzo, tight-lipped, claimed he'd been at the helm, checking the barge's moorings. The chef and stewards reported hearing a muffled thud around midnight, but nothing more. Poirot noted a coiled rope on deck, slightly frayed, as if used recently. Had someone climbed aboard, or escaped via the canal? The fog made witnesses unlikely, but the idea lingered. Back in the salon, Poirot gathered his thoughts. Clues: the missing vial, the jasmine petal, the torn letter, the frayed rope, red herrings, the bloody footprint, the scratch marks, ambiguity. Motives swirled like the fog. Lady Amelia's inheritance and jealousy, Lang's financial ruin, Elena's greed, the Countess's mysterious debt, Moreau's potential blackmail. The locked room baffled him. How had the killer entered and exited? Yet Poirot's gray cells hummed with certainty. The answer lay in the barge's confines, in the secrets each passenger carried. As noon approached, the fog began to lift, revealing the crimson canal in stark relief. Poirot stood on deck, watching the water ripple, his mind piecing together the puzzle. A steward approached, nervous. "Signor Poirot, we found this in the galley." He held out a cloth stained with what looked like blood, wrapped around a small glass vial. Empty. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Merci," he said. "The fog, it begins to clear." Chapter 6. Clues and Red Herrings. The Serenissima Queen remains trapped in a foggy canal, and Sir Reginald Harrington lies dead in a locked cabin, a dagger in his chest. Clues are emerging, a jasmine petal, a missing vial, a blood-stained cloth, but so are distractions. Can Poirot's little gray cells separate truth from deception? Let's find out. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, what's the mood where you're listening tonight? Are you cozied up by a window with the rain tapping, or lost in a quiet evening under the stars? And if this mystery has you hooked, smash that like button and subscribe for more. Now let's glide into Chapter 6, Clues and Red Herrings. The fog over the Venetian Canal had begun to thin by midday, revealing the Serenissima Queen in stark relief against the crimson-tinted water. The barge, anchored near the arsenal, felt like a floating prison, its mahogany hull and brass fittings no longer symbols of luxury but of confinement. The murder of Sir Reginald Harrington, a dagger plunged into his heart in a locked cabin, had cast a pall over the passengers, and the air was thick with suspicion. Hercule Poirot, his green eyes sharp and his waxed mustache impeccable, stood on the deck, his mind a whirl of clues and contradictions. "Mon ami," Poirot said to Captain Arthur Hastings, who stood beside him, notebook in hand. "The puzzle, it is complex, but Poirot sees patterns. The jasmine petal, the missing vial, the frayed rope, these are threads. But the bloody footprint, the scratch mark on the lock, perhaps they are the red herrings designed to mislead." Hastings frowned, his brow furrowed. "But how, Poirot? The cabin was locked, the porthole bolted. It's impossible. And that footprint, dash it, it's my size, but I swear I was asleep." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Patience, Hastings. The impossible is merely the improbable in disguise. We must question further." Poirot gathered the passengers in the dining salon, where the crystal chandelier flickered, casting uneasy shadows. Inspector Giovanni Bellini, the Venetian policeman, stood by, his waxed beard glinting as he observed. The passengers, Lady Amelia, Victor Lang, Elena Harrington, Countess Olga Petrova, and Dr. Emile Moreau, sat in a tense semicircle, their faces a mix of fear and defiance. Poirot began with a recap, his voice measured. "Mesdames et messieurs, let us review. Sir Reginald was stabbed last night in a cabin locked from the inside. The key was found beside him, the porthole secure. We have clues, a jasmine petal, perhaps from Madame la Comtesse, a missing vial from Dr. Moreau's bag, a blood-stained cloth found in the galley, a frayed rope on deck, and distractions, a bloody footprint too perfect, and a torn letter mentioning betrayal in Paris. Now we dig deeper." He turned to Lady Amelia, whose silk shawl trembled slightly. "Madame, you heard an argument last night. Can you confirm the time?" She hesitated, her eyes darting to Lang. "Around 9:30, I think. It was Victor's voice. Something about forged contracts." Poirot noted a discrepancy. Lang had claimed the argument was at 8. A timeline inconsistency or a slip of memory? Victor Lang, his sharp features taut, bristled. "She's mistaken. Our discussion ended by 8. I was in my cabin after that, working. Poirot's eyes fell on Lang's ledger, now missing another page. And this ledger, monsieur? It seems lighter today. Lang flushed, muttering about misplacing notes. Poirot filed this away. Was Lang destroying evidence of the forged merger documents? Elena Harrington, clutching her locket, spoke next. I heard nothing after 10 when I retired, but Uncle Reggie was worried. He mentioned a rival threatening to expose him. Her eyes were wide, but Poirot caught a calculated glint. The locket, he recalled, held Sir Reginald's photo, sentimental or a sign of deeper motives. He asked to see it. Elena hesitated, then opened it, revealing not just Sir Reginald but a faded image of a woman. Her mother, perhaps. Motive. Her inheritance hinged on his death, but was there a family secret? Countess Olga Petrova, her diamond bracelet sparkling, leaned forward. I told you I was on deck late. In the fog, I dropped my shawl briefly. Perhaps the petal came from there. Her jasmine perfume was unmistakable, but her alibi was weak. No one had seen her. Poirot pressed. And this letter mentioning Paris? She shrugged. Reginald owed me money from our Paris days. A trifle. But her eyes flickered with unease. Motive? A debt? Or a deeper grudge tied to betrayal? Dr. Moreau, his tic pronounced, gripped his medical bag. The vial? I told you I misplaced it. It was for Sir Reginald's heart, nothing sinister. Poirot's gaze sharpened. And yet, Doctor, your bag is meticulously organized except for this missing vial. Moreau stammered, claiming it might have fallen into the canal. Poirot noted a faint tremor in his hands. Nervousness or guilt. Motive. A past medical error, perhaps tied to blackmail. Poirot dismissed the passengers and returned to the master cabin with Bellini. The blood pool had dried, the ruby-hilted dagger still in place. Poirot examined the torn letter scrap again, finding a new fragment under the desk. The word forged in Sir Reginald's handwriting. A clue to the merger or a personal betrayal? The jasmine petal, he confirmed, matched the Countess's perfume, but its placement near the door felt staged. Too convenient. On deck, Poirot inspected the frayed rope, noticing it was tied loosely as if hastily replaced. He leaned over the rail, peering into the crimson water. Something glinted below, a metal object, perhaps a key or tool just out of reach. He called for a crewman to dredge the canal, but the fog slowed their efforts. A red herring or a vital clue? Hastings, frustrated, joined him. This footprint business is maddening, Poirot, and now the rope, the petal, it's all a muddle. Poirot smiled faintly. A muddle, yes, but every puzzle has a pattern. Consider the timeline. Lady Amelia says 9:30, Lang says 8. Someone lies or someone misremembers. And the thud we heard. Midnight, yes? Yet Moreau saw him alive then. The truth it hides in these gaps. Back in the salon, Poirot found a new clue. A glove embroidered with the Countess's initials tucked behind a cushion. Another red herring? Its placement felt deliberate, unlike the petal's subtlety. He questioned the crew again. The steward, Marco, admitted seeing Lang on deck near 11, not in his cabin as claimed. He was pacing, muttering about ruin, Marco said. Lang's alibi was crumbling. As evening fell, the fog returned, thicker than before, isolating the barge further. Poirot sat in his cabin, sketching a timeline. Argument at 8 or 9:30, thud at midnight, death sometime after. The clues, petal, vial, rope, letter, glove, pointed in circles, but the red herring's footprint scratch mark nagged at him. Someone was weaving a web of deception, and the locked room held the key. Chapter 7. Complications and Twists. The Serenissima Queen is anchored in a misty canal, and Sir Reginald Harrington lies dead in a locked cabin, a dagger in his chest. clues, jasmine petals, a missing vial, a blood-stained cloth, point to secrets, while red herrings like a suspicious footprint led nowhere. Now Poirot's investigation takes a darker turn. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, what's the ambiance where you're listening tonight? Are you curled up by a fire or watching the stars through a window? And if this tale has you gripped, smash that like button and subscribe for more. Now let's plunge into Chapter 7, Complications and Twists. The Serenissima Queen rocked gently in the narrow canal near the Arsenale, its polished hull battered by a gathering storm. The fog, which had cloaked Venice for days, was now joined by dark clouds rolling in from the lagoon, their edges tinged crimson by the fading light. The water, once a poetic hue, churned with an angry ripple, as if mirroring the turmoil aboard. Sir Reginald Harrington's murder, a dagger in a locked cabin, had turned the luxurious barge into a floating cage, and Hercule Poirot, his green eyes gleaming, was determined to unlock its secrets. Poirot stood in the dining salon, his small frame dwarfed by the crystal chandelier which swayed slightly as the barge shifted. The passengers, Lady Amelia, Victor Lang, Elena Harrington, Countess Olga Petrova, and Dr. Emile Moreau, sat in uneasy silence, their faces pale under the flickering light. Inspector Giovanni Bellini, the Venetian policeman, hovered near the door, his waxed beard catching the glow of a lantern. Captain Arthur Hastings, notebook in hand, whispered to Poirot, "This storm's a beast, old chap. We're stuck here until it passes." "Oui, mon ami," Poirot replied, his mustache twitching. "The storm, it traps us, but it also traps the killer. The little gray cells, they thrive in such confinement." Poirot had gathered the passengers to review new findings, his voice calm but piercing. "Mesdames et messieurs, the clues multiply, but so do the deceptions. The jasmine petal, the missing vial, the frayed rope, the torn letter, these are threads in a tapestry. But the bloody footprint, the Countess's glove, they distract. Now, a new revelation changes. All." He held up the blood-stained cloth from the galley, unwrapping it to reveal the empty vial found within. This vial, it contained poison. Digitalis, a heart medication, but lethal in excess. Dr. Moreau, you said it was misplaced, yet here it is, with blood. Moreau's tic flared, his glasses fogging as he stammered, I don't know how it got there. I swear it was for his heart." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And yet, I have consulted with Inspector Bellini's coroner. Sir Reginald was poisoned before the dagger struck. The stab wound, it was post-mortem, a theatrical flourish to mask the true method." A gasp rippled through the room. Lady Amelia clutched her shawl, her sapphire brooch trembling. Lang's jaw tightened, his ledger forgotten. Elena's locket snapped shut, the Countess's eyes widened, and Moreau sank into his chair. "This changes the timeline," Poirot continued. "The poison was administered before midnight, perhaps at dinner. The thud we heard, merely the body falling, already dead. The locked room, it remains a puzzle, but the poison, it points to method." The storm outside roared, rain lashing the windows as Poirot questioned further. He turned to Dr. Moreau, whose nervous tic was now a constant twitch. "Doctor, your vial is missing and now found with blood. You visited Sir Reginald at midnight, oui? Did you administer anything?" Moreau shook his head violently. "No. He refused his medication. I left him alive." But Poirot's gaze lingered on Moreau's medical bag, where a faint opium scent lingered, a clue from earlier, now sharper. Had Moreau been smuggling drugs, perhaps using the barge as a cover? Motive. Sir Reginald's discovery of this could mean ruin. Poirot shifted to Lady Amelia. "Madam, you prepared Sir Reginald's wine last night, no?" She paled. "I poured it, yes, but only from the bottle on the table. I'd never..." Her voice broke, but Poirot noted her bruise, now more visible. Had Sir Reginald been violent, giving her reason to poison him? Motive? Freedom from a controlling husband plus inheritance. Victor Lang, his sharp features drawn, protested when asked about the merger. I told you the forged documents were Reginald's doing. I was trying to save the deal. But Poirot produced the torn letter fragment, now pieced together. Betrayal in Paris, forged for profit. Lang's eyes darted. That's not mine, he snapped, but his torn ledger suggested otherwise. Motive, financial desperation, perhaps a plan to eliminate his partner. Elena, her locket clutched tightly, claimed innocence. I loved Uncle Reggie, but he was worried about a rival, someone threatening exposure. Poirot pressed. And this locket, mademoiselle? The woman's photo? Elena hesitated, then admitted it was her mother, disowned by Sir Reginald years ago. Motive, revenge for a family slight alongside inheritance. Countess Olga, her diamond bracelet, glinting, dismissed the jasmine petal. A coincidence. My perfume is common in Venice. But Poirot revealed a new clue, a Canal vendor's testimony dredged by Bellini that the Countess had purchased a ruby-hilted dagger days ago. A gift, she insisted, her accent faltering. Motive? A debt unpaid or a deeper vendetta tied to Paris? As thunder crashed, Poirot examined the frayed rope again, now noticing a faint oil stain. Engine oil, perhaps from the barge's motor. Had someone used it to access the cabin via the canal? He ordered a crewman to search the water again, and they retrieved a small metal tool, a lockpick, half submerged. A clue to the locked room or another distraction. The storm intensified, trapping the barge. Hastings, rattled, whispered, This opium angle, Poirot. Moreau's a wreck. Could he be the killer? Poirot nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps, mon ami, but the poison suggests planning, not panic. And the dagger, it is a flourish. Someone wishes to mislead. A new complication arose. The steward, Marco, confessed to overhearing Moreau and Sir Reginald arguing about shipments days before. Not medicine, Marco whispered. Something hidden in the cargo hold. Poirot inspected the hold, finding a locked crate with traces of opium residue. Moreau, confronted, collapsed, admitting to smuggling but denying murder. Reginald knew, he sobbed. He threatened to expose me. The salon grew tense, the storm's roar drowning out whispers. Poirot's gray cells raced. Poison first, dagger second, a locked room, opium smuggling. The clues pointed everywhere, but the red herrings, footprint, glove, scratch mark, muddied the truth. Someone was orchestrating this chaos, and the storm ensured no one could escape. Chapter 8. The Deepening Mystery. The Serenissima Queen is trapped in a stormy canal, and Sir Reginald Harrington lies dead, poisoned and stabbed in a locked cabin. Clues, a jasmine petal, a missing vial, a frayed rope, point to secrets, while red herrings like a bloody footprint confuse the trail. A storm rages and opium smuggling has surfaced. Can Poirot unravel the truth? Let's find out. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, what's the vibe where you're listening tonight? Are you curled up by a crackling fire or watching the rain from a quiet room? And if this mystery has you hooked, smash that like button and subscribe for more. Now let's step into Chapter 8, The Deepening Mystery. The storm battered the Serenissima Queen, its winds howling across the narrow canal near the Arsenale, where the barge remained anchored. The crimson water churned violently, its surface broken by rain that fell in relentless sheets, turning the once glamorous vessel into a beleaguered fortress. The fog had lifted slightly, but the sky was a roiling mass of dark clouds, casting the barge in a perpetual twilight. Inside, the air was heavy with suspicion, the passengers' nerves frayed by the murder of Sir Reginald Harrington, poisoned, then stabbed in a locked cabin, an impossible crime that defied logic. Hercule Poirot stood in the dining salon, his small frame steady despite the barge's rocking. His green eyes gleamed under the flickering chandelier. His waxed mustache a beacon of calm amid the chaos. "Mesdames et messieurs," he said, his voice cutting through the storm's din. "The mystery deepens, but Poirot sees light through the fog. The poison, the dagger, the locked room, they are pieces of a puzzle. We must now probe deeper, for someone among you weaves a web of lies." Captain Arthur Hastings, pale and agitated, stood beside him, clutching his notebook. "This storm's a nightmare, Poirot," he muttered. "And these clues, it's like chasing shadows." Inspector Giovanni Bellini, the Venetian policeman, nodded grimly from the doorway, his waxed beard dripping with rainwater from a brief trip to the deck. The passengers, Lady Amelia, Victor Lang, Elena Harrington, Countess Olga Petrova, and Dr. Emile Moreau, sat in a tense circle, their faces a gallery of fear, guilt, and defiance. Poirot began with a startling revelation. "The opium in the cargo hold," he said, holding up a vial of residue from the locked crate, "suggests a smuggling operation. Dr. Moreau, you admitted Sir Reginald knew of this. Did he threaten to expose you?" Moreau's tic flared, his glasses slipping down his nose. "I told you I smuggled to survive. War debts, you understand, but I didn't kill him." His voice cracked, and Poirot noted a faint opium scent on his breath. Addiction, perhaps, as well as smuggling. Motive. Sir Reginald's threat could have driven him to murder. But a new complication arose. Victor Lang, his sharp features taut, pointed at Hastings. "What about him? That bloody footprint matches his shoes, and he was on deck last night near the cabin." The accusation hung in the air, and the passengers turned to Hastings, who sputtered, "Preposterous! I was asleep. Poirot, tell them." Poirot raised a hand, his eyes narrowing. "The footprint, it is too perfect, Monsieur Lang. A distraction, perhaps, to shift blame." But the seed of doubt was sown, and Hastings' face reddened with indignation. Poirot shifted focus to the locked room. He returned to the master cabin with Bellini, the storm's roar muffled by the heavy oak door. The blood pool had darkened, the ruby-hilted dagger still in Sir Reginald's chest. Poirot examined the porthole again, confirming its bolts were untampered. Then, beneath the cabin's floorboards, he noticed a faint seam, a hidden hatch, barely visible, leading to the barge's underbelly. "Mon Dieu," he murmured. "A passage to the canal, perhaps." He ordered the crew to open it, revealing a narrow compartment damp with canal water and a rusty ladder descending to the waterline. A clue to the killer's entry? Or another red herring? The hatch's discovery sent ripples through the passengers. Lady Amelia, her sapphire brooch trembling, whispered, "Reginald mentioned a secret compartment once. For business papers." Her bruise, now unmistakable, suggested more than a casual injury. Had Sir Reginald's temper pushed her to poison him? Motive, escape from a violent marriage plus wealth. Elena, clutching her locket, grew pale at the hatch's mention. "Uncle Reggie never told me about that," she protested, but her eyes darted to the floor. Poirot pressed, "Your mother's photo, mademoiselle. Why keep it hidden?" She admitted her mother's disownment was due to a scandal Sir Reginald caused. Motive, revenge, layered with inheritance. Countess Olga, her diamond bracelet glinting, dismissed the dagger accusation. "A gift," I said. "Many such daggers are sold in Venice." But Poirot revealed a new clue. A canal vendor's log obtained by Bellini showing Olga purchased not one but 2 daggers. "A precaution," she said coolly, but her accent wavered. Motive, a vendetta tied to Paris, perhaps more than a debt. Victor Lang, his ledger now tattered, denied tampering with evidence. The torn pages, clerical errors. But Poirot found a new fragment in the salon, a note in Lang's handwriting. Reginald must be stopped. Motive: financial ruin from a collapsing merger or fear of exposure. Poirot's investigation took a darker turn when the crew dredged the canal again, retrieving the glinting object he'd spotted. A second dagger identical to the murder weapon, its blade clean but etched with the same ruby design. 2 daggers, Poirot mused to Hastings. One to kill, one to mislead. The storm trapped them, preventing further searches, but the find deepened the mystery. The opium angle resurfaced when Marco, the steward, confessed to seeing Moreau slipping into the cargo hold late at night, before the murder. He was checking something. Boxes, not medicine, Marco whispered. Poirot searched the hold again, finding a hidden ledger in the opium crate, listing shipments to a Paris contact. Sir Reginald's initials were scrawled beside a note: Expose Moreau. Had the victim planned to turn him in? As night fell, the storm's fury peaked, the barge creaking under the strain. Poirot gathered the passengers, his voice grave. The hatch, the second dagger, the opium ledger, these are no coincidences. Someone planned this murder with care, using poison to kill, the dagger to deceive, and the locked room to confound. But Poirot, he sees through the shadows. Hastings, still stung by the accusation, whispered, "This is getting out of hand, Poirot." The hatch. Could someone have swum under the barge? Poirot nodded. Possible, mon ami, but risky in the canal's currents. The truth lies closer. The salon's atmosphere crackled with fear. Lady Amelia's eyes darted to Moreau. Lang glared at Elena, and the Countess's smile was icy. Poirot's gray cells raced. The poison administered at dinner, the hatch a possible entry, the daggers a deliberate ruse, the red herrings, footprint, glove, scratch mark, pointed to a mastermind. But who? Chapter 9. The Revelation. The Serenissima Queen is battered by a storm, and Sir Reginald Harrington lies dead, poisoned and stabbed in a locked cabin. Clues, jasmine petals, a missing vial, a hidden hatch, have swirled with red herrings like a bloody footprint and a suspicious glove. Opium smuggling has darkened the plot. Now Poirot gathers all to reveal the truth. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, what's the ambiance where you're listening tonight? Are you curled up by a window with the rain falling, or lost in a quiet evening under the stars? And if this mystery has you gripped, smash that like button and subscribe for more. Now let's step into Chapter 9. The Revelation. The storm over Venice had begun to wane, its thunder reduced to a distant grumble. But the Serenissima Queen remained anchored in the narrow canal near the Arsenal, its crimson waters now calm but no less ominous. The barge's dining salon was a tableau of tension, the crystal chandelier casting fractured light over the gathered passengers. The air was thick with anticipation, the weight of Sir Reginald Harrington's murder, a poisoning followed by a theatrical dagger in a locked cabin, pressing on every soul aboard. Hercule Poirot stood at the center, his small frame radiating authority, his green eyes piercing, his waxed mustache impeccable. The passengers, Lady Amelia, Victor Lang, Elena Harrington, Countess Olga Petrova, and Dr. Emile Moreau, sat in a semicircle, their faces pale with dread. Captain Arthur Hastings, notebook clutched tightly, stood by Poirot while Inspector Giovanni Bellini, the Venetian policeman, guarded the door, his waxed beard glinting in the lantern light. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice steady and deliberate, "the time has come. The murder of Sir Reginald Harrington, it is a puzzle most intricate, but Poirot's little gray cells have unraveled it. The poison, the dagger, the locked room, the opium, all are threads in a tapestry of deception. Tonight, I name the killer." A collective intake of breath filled the room. Lady Amelia's sapphire brooch trembled. Lang's sharp features tightened. Elena clutched her locket, the Countess's diamond bracelet glinted, and Moreau's tick flared violently. Poirot paced slowly, his cane tapping the floor. Let us begin with the crime. Sir Reginald was poisoned with digitalis, a heart medication, at dinner, dying before midnight. The dagger, plunged post-mortem, was a ruse to suggest a violent act. The cabin was locked, the key inside, the porthole bolted. How was this done? We have clues: a jasmine petal, a missing vial, a blood-stained cloth, a frayed rope, a hidden hatch, a second dagger, an opium ledger. And distractions: a bloody footprint, a countess's glove, a scratched lock. He turned to the timeline. The argument overheard, between 8 and 9:30, suggested conflict. Lady Amelia heard Victor Lang. Lang claimed it ended earlier. Elena heard a rival's threat. The thud at midnight when Dr. Moreau saw Sir Reginald alive was the body falling, already poisoned. The discrepancies, they point to a plan. Poirot addressed the red herrings first. The bloody footprint matching Monsieur Hastings' shoes was too perfect, placed to divert suspicion. Hastings, he was asleep, confirmed by the steward's watch. The Countess's glove found in the salon was planted, its embroidery too obvious. The scratch mark on the lock. A distraction, not tampering. These were the work of a cunning mind. He held up the jasmine petal. Madame la Comtesse, your perfume was found near the body. A clue or another ruse? Olga's eyes narrowed, but Poirot continued. The petal was deliberate, placed to implicate you. Your dagger purchase, 2, not 1, suggested guilt, but you bought them as gifts, verified by the vendor's log. Your motive, a debt from Paris, was real but not murderous. Lady Amelia's bruise drew his gaze. Madame, your husband's temper was known. The poison, perhaps in his wine, could free you. But your grief, it is genuine. And the bruise came from a fall, not violence, as the steward saw you stumble. Her sob confirmed it. Motive, inheritance, but not the act. Victor Lang's ledger was next. Monsieur, your torn pages and note, Reginald must be stopped, suggested fraud. The merger was forged, yes, but you were salvaging it, not killing. Your argument was heated, but your alibi holds. Marco saw you on deck, not near the cabin. Lang exhaled, relieved. Elena's locket was scrutinized. Mademoiselle, your mother's disownment fueled resentment, and your inheritance was substantial. The locket's photo hinted at revenge, but your tears, they are real. You loved your uncle despite his past. Elena nodded, her eyes wet. Poirot turned to Dr. Moreau, whose tic betrayed his panic. Doctor, the vial of digitalis found blood-stained was yours. The opium ledger with Sir Reginald's note to expose you was damning. You smuggled drugs using the barge as cover, and Sir Reginald discovered it. You poisoned his wine at dinner, knowing his heart condition. The thud at midnight, his body falling. But the locked room, how? Poirot revealed the solution. The hidden hatch, it leads to the canal. You, doctor, used a thin cord threaded under the door to pull the key inside after locking it. The dagger, a second one from the Countess's purchase, you stole and used post-mortem to confuse. The hatch allowed you to slip out, leaving the cabin sealed. The frayed rope? Your escape, hastily tied back. Moreau's face crumpled. He was going to ruin me, he cried. The opium, it was my only way out of debt. He confessed. Sir Reginald had found the ledger, threatened to turn him in. Moreau laced the wine with digitalis, staged the stabbing, and used the hatch to escape, planting the petal and glove to mislead. Poirot tied up the clues. The blood-stained cloth hid the vial discarded in panic. The second dagger thrown in the canal was your mistake. Its recovery betrayed you. The opium ledger confirmed your motive. The letter fragments, betrayal, Forged were Sir Reginald's notes on your smuggling, not Lang's merger. Bellini stepped forward, handcuffs ready. Moreau slumped, defeated. The passengers exhaled, the storm outside fading to a drizzle. Poirot's gray cells had triumphed. Chapter 10. Justice served. The storm has calmed, and Dr. Emile Moreau has been unmasked as Sir Reginald Harrington's killer, his poison and dagger unraveling in a locked-room puzzle. Now the Crimson Canal awaits its final reckoning. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, what's the atmosphere where you're listening tonight? Are you curled up by a fire, or gazing at the moon through a window? And if this mystery has captivated you, smash that like button and subscribe for more. Now let's step into Chapter 10, Justice Served. The storm that had battered Venice had finally passed, leaving the Serenissima Queen bathed in the soft glow of a late afternoon sun. The narrow canal near the Arsenal shimmered with a crimson hue, its waters calm once more, as if cleansed of the darkness that had unfolded aboard the barge. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of salt and ancient stone, and the city's palazzos stood sentinel, their weathered facades watching the resolution of a tragedy. Sir Reginald Harrington's murder, poisoned by digitalis, then stabbed in a locked cabin, had been solved by Hercule Poirot, his little gray cells piercing the fog of deception to name Dr. Emile Moreau as the killer. In the dining salon, the crystal chandelier gleamed steadily now, its light no longer fractured by the storm's sway. The passengers, Lady Amelia, Victor Lang, Helena Harrington, and Countess Olga Petrova, sat in stunned silence, their faces a mix of relief, sorrow, and lingering distrust. Inspector Giovanni Bellini, the Venetian policeman, stood by the door, his waxed beard catching the sunlight as he held handcuffs for Moreau. Captain Arthur Hastings, his notebook closed, stood beside Poirot, his expression a blend of awe and exhaustion. Poirot, his small frame commanding the room, addressed the group one final time. "Mesdames et messieurs," he said, his voice rich with conviction, "the truth has been revealed. Dr. Moreau, driven by fear of exposure, poisoned Sir Reginald at dinner, using digitalis from his own vial. The dagger, stolen from Madame la Comtesse's purchase, was a post-mortem flourish to mask the true method. The locked room, a clever trick using a cord under the door to pull the key inside, accessed via the hidden hatch to the canal. Justice it is now served." Dr. Moreau slumped in his chair, his wire-rimmed glasses askew looked broken. His nervous tick had stilled, replaced by a hollow resignation. "I had no choice," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Reginald found the opium ledger in the cargo hold. He was going to turn me in, ruin me. The war left me in debt, and the smuggling. It was my only way out." He admitted lacing Sir Reginald's wine with an overdose of digitalis, knowing his heart condition would mask the cause. The dagger, he confessed, was to create confusion, the hatch his escape route after locking the door. Inspector Bellini stepped forward, his handcuffs clicking as he secured Moreau's wrists. "Dottore, you will answer to Venetian law," he said sternly. "The barge's crew has secured the opium crate as evidence." The steward, Marco, nodded from the corner, his earlier testimony about Moreau's late-night visits to the hold now vindicated. Lady Amelia, her sapphire brooch glinting, wiped tears from her eyes. "I knew Reginald had enemies," she said softly, "but I never imagined this." Poirot inclined his head. "Madam, your grief is genuine, and your bruise, it was an accident, not violence. You are free to mourn." She nodded, her shawl slipping as she clasped her hands, the weight of her inheritance now bittersweet. Victor Lang, his sharp features softened by relief, spoke next. "I argued with Reginald, yes, but I didn't kill him. The forged documents, they were his folly, not mine." Poirot nodded. "Your ledger's torn pages were errors, not evidence of murder. Your motive was fear, not action. Lang exhaled, his future uncertain, but his name cleared. Elena Harrington, clutching her locket, looked at Poirot with gratitude. Uncle Reggie hurt my mother, but I loved him. Thank you for the truth. Poirot smiled faintly. Mademoiselle, your locket holds love, not vengeance. Your inheritance is yours, untainted. She opened the locket, revealing the photos of Sir Reginald and her mother, a family healed by truth. Countess Olga Petrova, her diamond bracelet sparkling, met Poirot's gaze with a regal nod. The jasmine petal, the dagger, they were used against me, but Paris is in the past. Poirot bowed slightly. Madame, your debt was real, but your heart was not murderous. The second dagger, it was a gift, as you said. Her smile was enigmatic, her secret safe. Hastings, still shaken by the false accusation, muttered, "That blasted footprint, I knew it was nonsense." Poirot chuckled. "Mon ami, your innocence was never in doubt. The footprint, like the glove and scratch mark, was a red herring crafted to confuse." Poirot addressed the clue's resolution. The jasmine petal placed to implicate the Countess, the blood-stained cloth hiding the vial, the frayed rope used to escape via the hatch, the second dagger discarded in the canal, all pointed to Moreau's plan. The opium ledger sealed his motive. Sir Reginald's threat to expose his smuggling. The letter fragments, betrayal, forged, referred to Moreau's crimes, not Lang's merger. As Bellini escorted Moreau to a waiting police boat, the passengers dispersed, their relief tempered by the weight of loss. Lady Amelia retired to her cabin. Elena and the Countess shared a quiet word, and Lang began reviewing his ledger, planning his next move. The barge's crew prepared to sail, the storm's aftermath leaving the canal serene. Poirot stepped onto the deck, the crimson water reflecting the setting sun. Hastings joined him, the air now warm with the promise of a clear evening. "You did it again, Poirot," Hastings said, admiration in his voice. "Those gray cells of yours, they're a marvel." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "The human heart, mon ami, it is complex, driven by fear, greed, love. But order, it prevails. The Crimson Canal, it has seen much, but now it rests." He lit a cigarette, the smoke curling into the twilight, and gazed at the palazzos lining the canal. Venice, with its beauty and secrets, would endure. The Serenissima Queen cast off, gliding toward the Grand Canal, its lanterns glowing like stars. The passengers, though scarred, were free, and the barge sailed on, leaving the tragedy behind. The water shimmered crimson once more, not with blood, but with the promise of a new dawn.